Hi, my name is Roz McKinnon. Have you ever wondered about the 7 sacred teachings? Well, I have, and I'm here in Kentville, Nova Scotia, Canada with Carolyn Landry, and we're going to have a little discussion about that today.
Right.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Roz.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me to talk about this.
Thank you.
I guess maybe let's begin in the beginning. What are the 7 sacred teachings about?
Well, the 7 teachings, the 7 sacred teachings, is a principle and a way of life that Mi'kmaq people lived under for thousands of years. And it's a practice that, if followed, will lead you to healing mentally, physically, emotionally, and mentally. It's a spiritual journey.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, are there symbols and elements? If I'm interested in this, and I am, how do I start? Where do I begin?
Okay, the very first thing is the desire and the want to seek freedom, joy, peace, and happiness. And I think we all want that as human beings.
Pretty attractive, yeah.
And sometimes we look outside for it, but it's already within us. And as Mi'kmaq people, we believe that we are spiritual beings first, experiencing a human existence through our body. With the spirituality point of it, we are connected to Mother Earth and the universe and the other sacred directions. So when we look at keeping the balance, we look at having to honor things. The earth, for an example. That's the giver of life, Mother Earth. So we have to learn how to honor that. And it's based on an age-old tradition and lifestyle called Netukulimk. Now, Netukulimk is like a way of life, a worldview connecting us to the earth. And if we follow the 7 teachings out of Netukulimk, we will peek into our spirituality, find the balance, and we will end suffering.
Netukulimk. Am I saying that properly?
Netukulimk.
Netukulimk.
Yes.
So there are 7 teachings, or 7 pillars, 7 principles. Can we talk a little bit about those?
Okay, so there's 7 teachings, and they are wisdom, love, truth, honesty, respect, humility, and courage. So, but there's more than that. Those are the ones that we are more aware of. But because our spirit is very subtle, when we become aware of those 7, we become more aware and more conscious of our surroundings, so that we follow our spirit, and there's more subtleties than those 7 that I already mentioned. So when we learn those, we become more aware of our surroundings, and we become one with the teachings.
Becoming one with the teachings. Is that the same as becoming one with ourselves, like embracing everything we are?
Yes. Yes, it is. And we are conditioned in our physical being, and our minds are conditioned from the time that we're born to believe that we are something we are not. And in our society, it's very kind of linear in the ways of thinking of right and wrong, good and bad, yes and no, and those dualistic ways of thinking. With the 7 teachings way of thinking it transcends that, and it becomes a very holistic way, where we become one with ourselves, our true nature of love and courage, humility, all the teachings. We become one with that, and we become aware of it. So as we practice it and become more aware, there's no room for the opposite of the teachings. That's what I mean by becoming one with it. We become love. We become courage. We become humility. Those are all action words, a way of living.
Now, I do remember seeing some information on the 7 teachings, and there are animals associated with the teachings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay. So when the Mi'kmaq people, and I've learned this through teachings and storytelling, what the animals meant and how we watched them, because we knew that they knew more than us because they were here before we were here. So we would watch, for an example, we would watch the bear come out of hibernation or a winter rest. And we knew that the bear went without food. So we knew that as his body or her body got weak, the spirit was more exposed and became stronger, showing itself. Not that the spirit can get weak or stronger, it's just that it was open now for survival. So the bear would go out and eat the right berries. Sometimes the mother bear would wake up and give birth and go back to sleep or back to rest. So we watched and watched, and we saw that virtue in the bear as courage, and we could relate it to us as human beings. So then the bond of all my relations, or Msit Nokamaq, was made, that I am the brother or sister to the bear. We are one, we are related. So the virtue of the 7 animals was something that we could see in ourselves.
You just mentioned, I think, a key point, and that's how you came to be familiar with the teachings. How did that happen? What's been your journey with these?
Okay, well, I realized at a very young age, I had connection to spirit. I watched my elders, I watched my siblings, and I watched how they interacted amongst each other and in nature. And I recognized it, and I would ask questions. And instead of my elders telling me, they would show me. We would go into the forest, or we would go near the water, or we would go in our yard and do little things of honoring nature. How I was taught to always give back. If I take anything from nature or anything from anybody, I have to give back. And that's one of the main principles of Netukulimk, is to, when you take, you have to give back. And that's followed in all the teachings. That's one of the most important principles of the teachings.
And is it also part of the teaching to take just what you need?
Yes, yeah. In our culture, prior to contact, there was no words for greed or jealousy, because we followed the animals and we followed the teachings. So, and we were minimalists. We traveled from region to region, and we didn't carry things behind us. So we learned we don't take any more than we need.
You know, I have to tell you, when you say we didn't carry anything behind us, the idea of baggage, even if I go away for a weekend, really kind of hit me in the face. It's like, in today's society, we do seem to really need a lot of things, right?
Yes, we think we do.
Yeah, we think we do. Yeah. We surround ourselves with a fair amount of things. If someone wanted to learn more about the teachings, if they wanted to see if it could make a change in their life, what would you recommend they do?
Well, when I think about the teachings, I think we all seek the freedom, like I mentioned before. I think we seek the freedom and the peace and the harmony, because that's who we are. We always turn to that. And I think that if you're watching and you want to know more about these teachings and the principle of Netukulimk, we can do it through group meetings. We can do it through Zoom. We can do it one-on-one. We can do it however. There are no limitations and no boundaries on how to learn these teachings.
Mm-hmm. And are they for everyone?
I think they are for everyone. I think a part of our conditioning comes in and says, I don't really have time for this. I've got tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow. Or it does really take a commitment and a desire and a level of passion to try it out.
Mm-hmm. And what are the benefits of trying it out?
The benefits, first and foremost, is not for ourselves. The benefit is never for us. It's the service of others, so that we can get along with our neighbors. We can love our neighbors. We can, when we look at our neighbors or our friends, we see a reflection of our own self.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the teachings take you. They take you to a place of freedom and love and peace and humility and respect, until there's no opposite of those things. It may sound idyllic, but it's who we are. That's our true nature. That's who we were born with. That's our true inheritance. Not only with Mi'kmaq people, all across the globe, universal.
Carolyn, do we dare bring up the word reconciliation?
Well, it is a word that some people don't want to hear about. It's because of what they think about the word. Reconciliation is important in these teachings. It's not about reconciling differences between two people or a nation against a nation. It's about reconciling our mind, heart, spirit. And when we reach that reconciliation, we find our part in our experiences that have caused us any kind of pain or suffering. We first find our place in it. Not saying that there's anything or anybody to blame. It's just that when we become more aware of who we are, we become conscious of our spirit and our mind and our body and the balance between those three. And that's reconciliation. And when you have reconciled all the differences within you, you can sit at a table where policies are made with a clear mind and heart. You can seek justice without anger and fear. Then the balance is made.
While you're speaking, there's one word that kind of keeps popping into my mind, and that's forgiveness. The concept of forgiveness.
Yes, that's big. You know, that's everything that we do in our life that causes us pain or suffering is big. It's huge and it's real. And we tend to think that we have to forgive somebody to move forward and to have that sense of peace and freedom and peace of mind. So first of all, excuse me, when we think of forgiveness, there's always, who can I forgive? Who has caused me pain? And practicing the teachings takes you beyond that. It takes you beyond that dual way of thinking that he or she is to blame for my suffering, and now for me to be free, I have to forgive that person. But if we follow the teachings to the truth and the honesty of our true self, our true nature, we find out that nobody is to blame. We find our part in it, not blaming. We're very gentle and compassionate with ourselves and others, that what we think happened didn't happen at all. That's where these teachings take us.
Very interesting.
And when we have reconciled, there's freedom in that. And there's no need to suffer anymore. Freedom, wisdom comes from that.
I'm not sure if I'm using the right words or not, but Are there rituals or ceremonies or that type of thing associated with the teachings as well?
Yes. And for an example, a very important grounding exercise, like we just did,
Yes.
where we stand and the best place to do it is outside. Take your shoes off, connect with the earth. Take your left hand, take the energies out of the earth. Thank Mother Earth. Bring it up and release it. Then you take your right hand and you ask for the universe, and you take from the universe and you release that into the ground. That's taking and giving. That's one ritual, or a ceremony, or however you want to look at it. And there's other ways. There's smudge ceremonies, and there's naming ceremonies, and there's so many things that we can call honoring. When we focus and pay attention to things, we honor all life, and we become one with nature. For an example, we say Msit Nokamaq. That means all my relations in English. But when we translate things from one language to another, things get lost. So when we say Msit Nokamaq, that's our mind has to hear that, to know that we are more than the mind, we are spirit. So when the mind hears it, it's reminded. It keeps the ego tamed, and the spirit becomes in balance with it. And we say, yes, we are all related. And that's very important. So yeah, there's quite a few, but it's all comes down to honoring. We have to learn how to do that.
How, just in your everyday, part of the process seems to be, becoming familiar with the teachings, sitting with someone who knows the teachings, practicing. But how, for you, in your everyday life, do you go about honoring the teachings?
Okay, so remember I said about the opposite of the teachings. So we could look at courage, for an example, and say, what is the opposite of courage? And that's going to be different for each individual. So when we recognize what courage is, and when we think that we're the opposite of it, we have to become aware of it. And we have to stop in our tracks and say, oh, just a minute. I've recognized that, because your spirit knows. If you're in tune, your spirit knows that, okay, now we have to honor courage. Because, say, for an example, if you think fear is the opposite of courage and you become fearful, you have to recognize that and say, I am not that. I am courage. And you honor it, and you go and you do the little ceremony. You may want to offer tobacco, or you may want to offer food to the spirits, and that's honoring. And then the next time you're faced with a fear, you already know now. And then your intuition catches it quicker, and then you're able to honor it. And that's what we do. We just wake up in the morning, we go out, thank you for this beautiful day. Whether the sun is shining or not, we woke up. And there's so much to be grateful for. And then we learn to honor the space around us. And the tea that we drink, or the water, or anything around us, it's all presence.
You mentioned earlier that if people had more questions, or if they were interested, you're available. You're on Facebook as Carolyn Landry. You have email. What is your email?
I have email. It's landrycarolyn@hotmail.com. I have done this on Zoom, so I'm available on Zoom. I have a space that I can use that can hold up to 12 people during COVID, and I can do one-on-one, or I can do a group up to 12.
Thank you very much. It's been a fascinating conversation. Is there anything you'd like to add before we leave?
Yes. I don't ask you to believe this. And I can only point you into the direction of the teachings. I just ask that you try it.
So keep an open mind. See if it's going to work for you. And maybe you just might be able to get rid of a little bit of that baggage, which is always a good thing.
Yes, and you will.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roz.